The average retirement age in the US is 64 to 66. In Canada, it's 65. And it goes without saying that many retire even later in their 70s because they're not financially prepared. On the other hand, there are people who manage to retire at 45, 35, or even 28. For most early retirees, the goal of retiring early is not to do nothing, watch TV all day, and sip margaritas by the beach, as the cliche goes, but rather to have freedom, time, and flexibility. The real benefit of retiring early is that work becomes optional. You're no longer working just to pay the bills, showing up at 8:30 at a job that you can no longer stand. But if you do work, it's on your terms, doing what you love for as long as you choose. Now, if this is something that you want, to retire early and do what you want, you'll need a solid plan and the courage to go against the grain. And that's basically what we're talking about on this channel, so if you want more videos on this, consider subscribing. And also hit that bell so you get notified whenever I launch a new video. So what's the plan and how to make this reality? We can basically summarize everything in this one page here. First, of course, save money. From now until your planned retirement year, let's say in 15 years from now, save as much money as you can each month. If you find that difficult, you can watch this video here later on my payday routine to get you saving more. Next, you gotta invest that money as soon as possible into an asset or an investment that either grows strongly or pays high returns or interest. And we're not talking about 3 to 4% here, but at least 8 to 10% or more. In my opinion, not financial advice, for beginners especially, index ETFs are great. Here's a video where I share some of my favorite ones. Don't wait to invest until you have saved a large amount of money. Instead, try to invest regularly, monthly, if not weekly, every time your paycheck comes in. If you're in Canada, look into investing in either a TFSA or RSP or both to reduce your taxes. And in case you haven't started to invest, you can easily do that on online investment platforms like Wealthsimple or Questrade. Both of them are awesome for beginners. They have no fees for trading stocks and ETFs, and I have accounts with both of them. I've left my links to both in the descriptions below where you can earn a small bonus. Note that I'll also get a small commission if you sign up. Then you can retire and start withdrawing money from that nest egg you built. The important thing though is that you've not built a static nest egg, but instead one that keeps growing in size. So even if you withdraw money from it each month to cover your living expenses, it will keep growing and last until you die if set up correctly. And because you set up your money in a smart way, you don't really need to worry about money anymore. Instead, you can finally focus on doing the things that you want. This is if you do it right. What many people are not clear about is how much money they actually need to save and invest. Is that $1 million? $2 million? Some even say it's $3 million. The truth is that there is not one amount of money or number that applies to everyone. So you need to find out your personal number, your number that you need to achieve so you can retire early. And there are 3 simple steps to calculate this. Step 1 is to calculate your annual expenses during retirement. An easy way to do this is start from your current annual expenses. Let's say that's $60,000. Some say that you can assume your expenses to be 80% of your current expenses later because many retirees spend less. But I wouldn't count on this. Consider this instead. Where do you plan to retire? If you plan to retire in Canada, counting in inflation, you'd probably need a bit more, so tag on 10 or even 20,000. If you're going to retire in Thailand, it's likely half or less. Will you own your home by that time? If you do, you can probably reduce your expenses by, let's say, 30 or even 40,000. What about your lifestyle? Will you live more frugally, cook all the time, or will you go on lavish travels overseas, which could easily add 10, 20, if not 30,000 each year? It's hard to get a precise number because your goals can change over time. But for this example, let's just assume that after adjusting various factors, your annual expenses are $60,000. Now, step 2 is to find your number, so the amount of money you need to save and invest in growing assets. How much money do you need so that it can later throw off that $60,000 each year? For this, we need to quickly introduce the 4% rule. The rule of 4% is a rule of thumb that a retiree can withdraw 4% of their retirement funds each year. So on an amount of $1 million, that would be 4% or $40,000 each year, and it allows for small adjustments based on inflation. Now, to calculate your number, we simply take your target annual expenses, which was $60,000, and multiply it by 25. 25 is basically 100 divided by 4%, equals 25. So $60,000 times 25 equals $1.5 million. In other words, if you have $1.5 million invested, during retirement, you'll be able to withdraw 4% or $60,000 each year without running out of money for at least 30 years, or even longer, depending on how you set it up. And that can happen because your investments keep growing year after year at a higher rate than your your withdrawal rate. So as you see, a lot of the calculation hinges on that 4% assumption. And the 4% itself is based on various assumptions about stock market returns and what percentage you invest in bonds versus stocks. I'm not going to go into detail in this video, but while the 4% has often been referred to as the safe withdrawal rate, some people think that to go extra safe, you should use 3.5% or even 3% as the withdrawal rate, resulting in a multiplier of 33.3 and a higher number of $2 million instead. Others think that 4% is way too safe, and if you put your money into higher yielding investments, you could assume 5 or even 6% as withdrawal rate, resulting in a multiplier of 16.7 and a much lower number of only $1 million that you need to save and invest. What percentage to use is a more detailed discussion, but you got the basic idea. By the way, if you follow the calculation so far, comment down below, guys, what is your number? Now you got your planned annual expense, you got your number. Next, how much do you need to save each month to actually get there? Let's calculate that in step 3. In step 3, let's find out how much money you need to save and invest to generate that $60,000 per year during retirement. Many people miss their retirement goal entirely and go on working forever because they either miscalculated what it takes to get there or they didn't have any calculation to begin with. So don't be one of them. Once you know how much you need to save and invest each month to be able to retire at a certain age with a certain living standard, it becomes very motivating. At least that is what happened to me. For this example, let's continue to assume your number is 1.5 million based on annual expenses of 60,000 in retirement and a standard 4% withdrawal rate. Now, when can you retire? Let's use this awesome compounding calculator from the calculator site. Let's assume you already have $50,000 invested right now. You put your money into a combination of bonds, stocks, ETFs, mostly the latter, and get an average return of 8%. Again, a ton of assumptions go into this. But for reference, the S&P 500 index delivered an average annual return of 10% since 1957. So 8% is quite realistic over the medium to long term. Let's say you keep on investing for the next 10 years and invest $2,000 each month. After 10 years, your money will have grown to almost $470,000. But oh, hold on, what was our number again? $1.5 million, much more than that. We need more, so let's tweak some things. Now assume you invest $3,000 instead of $2,000 each month for 8 more years. At the end of 18 years, your investments would have grown to almost $1.6 million and you would have achieved your target. If you're 25 right now, even in 18 years from now, you'll only be 43. But if you're 45 now, in 18 years, you'll be 63, close to the usual retirement age, but still not bad. But what if you don't want to retire at 63 and you want to retire in your 40s or 50s? You see from this calculation that your ability to retire hinges on several things. How much you save and invest each month during your working years. The rate of return on your investments, which in turn depends on what you invest in. And third, how long you let your money simmer, so compound. If you want to retire faster, your only way is to save and invest more money each month, or ideally and increase your rate of return. As I said earlier, I'm a big fan of index ETFs, but for me, they're not all there is to it. Since I don't want to wait forever to reach financial independence, I don't want to just rely on ETFs. Instead, I also invest my money into the highest growing asset, which is Bitcoin. Look, Bitcoin is super volatile, as you see here, but pay attention to Bitcoin's average growth over the long term. While the S&P 500 grew 12.2% over the last 10 years on average, Bitcoin grew 81.7% over the past 10 years. This is not financial advice, guys, but to grow my money faster over the long term, I note, very important, I invest a part of my money into Bitcoin. Let's tweak that calculation just now. If I increase the average yearly return to just 30% per year, note Bitcoin's was 82% on average in the last 10 years, I'm only using 30% as an assumption, and invest that over 10 years, just $1,500 per month, I'd be at over $1.5 million in 10 years. Goal accomplished. Now, just in case you want to start buying Bitcoin, NDAX is a Canadian exchange that has the lowest trading costs in the market and is super easy to use. You can get a $10 bonus if you use my link down below. Note that I'll also get a small commission if you sign up. Again, I have to stress this is not financial advice, but investing into Bitcoin is part of my personal retirement plan, and it would be wrong not to share this with you guys. There are many precautions to take when investing into Bitcoin, and after buying it for almost 4 years years, I thought I'd start a channel just on Bitcoin to share my learning. So stay tuned for the launch. Now, those were the 3 steps to retire early. Obviously, saving money to invest is a big part of it. So if you need some tips on how to double your savings this year, then watch this video next.